We'll start by creating a new project. And this project we're going to create from the command line app template. Going to give it a name. Call it method as expression example. And let's get started. So, when we're defining a new method, we need to use some modifiers. For this example, we are going to use the public static modifiers, and I'm not going to dive into the meaning of those in this example here. Then we need to specify a return type, and the return type that we'll choose for our method here is int. This means that the method that we are creating here or defining here is a method that will give us an int result back. That means that it will yield an integer back to us once we call it. It has to do that. This is a sort of a contractual obligation that this method must adhere to. Then we give it a name. We could call it add. And then we define in these parentheses here which parameters we are going to use. And for this very simple example, we are going to use two parameters. We are going to call one parameter of type int and give it the name a. And then the other parameter, we are going to give that type int as well and call it b. So the purpose here is that we would like to have a method that adds the value of this parameter to the value of this parameter and returns the resulting value. So how do we do that? Well, it's pretty simple. We could do it like this, where we define a variable. We could call it int result. And the result here is, of course, the value of a, which we can get just by writing a. And we then add that to the value of b. What's going to happen here is, of course, that the value that we get from a is added to the value that we get from b and then assigned to the result variable. Now all that's left to do, you'll notice down here that we have a red line under the parenthesis here, or the bracket down here. And the reason for that is that we currently do not adhere to the contract that we implicitly specified up here, where we said that we are going to return an integer value. Currently this method does not return anything, so in order to have it return something, we'll write down here return and then result. That's it. Now we've defined our own method. And now we're going to use this method as in an expression. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to define two variables up here. And just to make sure that we don't confuse anything here, I'm going to give them the names num1 and give that a value. It's an integer variable, so of course I need to assign it an integer value. And we're also going to have a num2. And that also is of type integer, so we'll give it an integer value. Now, I'm going to make another variable here. I'm going to call it sum num1 num2. And I'm going to assign it a value which is based on whatever is returned by the method add that we just created down here. And then I'm going to send values to the add method by specifying num1 and num2 here. So what's really happening here is that I'm handing the values of num1 and num2 to the method add, and the method add can access these values up here by referencing the parameters in here. Of course, I could call add several times and call it with different values as well, and then that would of course redefine the values of these down here. So for each call we make to this add method, the values of these in here may change based on how we make the call, right? So in this example here, the value of a will be 12 because that is the first number I specified in the parentheses here in my method call, and the second value, the value of b, is going to be 14. So down here what it's going to do is it is going to add 12 plus 14 and return the result up here. Now here I'm actually not using the method as a expression, so I'm going to delete that. But the similar concept applies here, where the values that we are sending is the value that we get from num1, 3, and then the value that we get from num2, which is 12. We pass those values to the method, and that means that when we're calling the method this way, the value of a is going to be 3. So here it's going to say 3, and the value of b is going to be whatever value num2 has, and that is 12. So this means that it'll say 3 plus 12, and of course it's going to return that result to us, which means that we should anticipate the value of sum num1 num2 to be 15. Now we can validate that behavior by doing a system out print line, and in here we're going to write just sum num1 num2 like this. Okay, now we can try and test our program and see if it is working as we are anticipating. The value of 15 is written out. This means that we are getting the value of sum num1 num2 that we're expecting, and our program is executing as we would expect it to.